Hi everyone and welcome back to Laura Talks MS. I've had MS for 12 years and I want to share my journey and my story with my MS to be able to help give others advice, support and suggestions on how to manage their MS. Today I want to talk about symptoms because I think it's something that people worry about with MS. I think they also want to know what the effects are that it has on the body. So I think it's a really important topic. I want to talk about some of the symptoms that I have and some of the symptoms that I still continue to have with my MS. And I'll just give a very brief outline, but I'll continue to explain them a bit more in depth in some of my other videos as I go along. If you want to pop a comment to explain some of the symptoms that you have below, please do so, because it's really interesting to see what different kind of symptoms that people have with MS and the different kind of effects that they have on our body. So the first symptoms that I experienced with my MS were numbness and sensory loss. Numbness can appear anywhere in the body with MS, but for me it happened in my leg and it happened in my arm. With my arm, it was like sleeping in my arm funny one morning and waking up and really that never going away for a period of time, maybe a couple of weeks. And for the sensory loss, it was any contact with hot and cold on my skin was just extremely painful for me. The other symptom that I have experienced with my MS was optic neuritis. This was probably one of the most painful symptoms that I've had. It was extremely painful on movement from left to right of my eyeball. And I had difficulty with colour vision, so I had difficulty seeing colours like greens and reds, and I had a slight bit of blurred vision at the time as well, but I had no vision loss with that. I also suffer from things like tremors and spasms, and I have vibrations and tingling sensations literally from the top of my shoulders all the way down into my toes. I also suffer from something called aura headaches. I can tell when these are going to come on now. I've had them for quite some time. It's a headache, but where you don't actually have the headache. And after I've had these, I'm left completely wiped out and I need to rest for at least a couple of days. The other symptom that I have and I continue to have, and anybody with MS will know what this is like, and it's fatigue, and it is completely overwhelming. It creeps on, you don't even know sometimes where it's come from, and it comes out of nowhere, and sometimes you need to just rest for days, sometimes it can be weeks, and there is really nothing that you can do with MS fatigue apart from to rest and recover. The other thing that I suffer from is vertigo. When I have this, it's extremely disabling for me. I have to spend days in my bed. I'm completely bedridden sometimes. Sometimes it can last for hours, sometimes it can last for days, sometimes it can be weeks, and I'm not able to really do anything, I'm not able to function. That's probably one of the worst symptoms that I have with my MS in terms of a disabling symptom. I have another symptom which many of you maybe have never heard of. I'm not sure if any of you have got it with your MS. If you have, please comment in the box below, because I've not spoken to anybody who has had this, but it's called Alice in Wonderland syndrome. I believe it's also known as Todd syndrome, but basically what happens with Alice in Wonderland syndrome is that your limbs appear bigger than what they actually are. I think your perception of things is actually distorted somewhat. So my hands, in particular, it's always my hands, they just feel like these big clown hands, and these symptoms last for a couple of minutes. It really distorts my whole perception of things, and I have a really bad time through this. It makes me feel quite unwell. Another symptom which I've experienced is hair loss. I did have a disease-modifying drug, which was a type of chemotherapy called Lemtrada. However, that was not supposed to actually cause any hair loss. I did read one time that people with MS are slightly deficient in B12, so I don't know if that could be a cause of hair loss. I could have also been deficient in iron at some point, but that was something that was quite interesting for me in terms of wondering whether that was something to do with my MS or a symptom or a side effect. So I really wanted to talk about symptoms today because I think it's an extremely important subject matter. I think that people worry about symptoms. I think that we worry about what's going to happen in our bodies if we've had a relapse and we're experiencing what we feel as damage in our bodies. Is this going to get better? Is my hand ever going to get better? Is my foot going to ever get better? Am I going to be able to walk again? Am I going to be able to see? It's all these questions that we have. So it's so important for us to be able to talk about this and find all these answers to these questions, but we may not have answers. For example, I had 3 relapses in the space of 2 months. And I thought if I go on to this disease-modifying drug, this chemotherapy drug that I was going on to, I wondered whether I would ever have any symptoms and relapses again. If you look at the 11 years that I've been on the trial, I have had symptoms and I still continue to have symptoms. So I would like to say that I've been relapse-free, but I don't think that's entirely true. However, you just don't know with MS. It's just such an unpredictable disease. The one thing that I can say is that I think that there are ways to manage our symptoms by exercise, by diet, by healthy living, by being surrounded by really supportive, positive people and living a really good life. I think that there are definitely ways to do this and to beat it. It can be a scary place, but it doesn't have to be that scary because you always know that there's going to be people out there to want to be able to help you. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope that it's given you some help or some maybe support of something that you've been worried about. If you think that they're helping, subscribe, and maybe if you think that they might help others, please share them with your friends and your family. I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care everyone. See you soon.